Hello and welcome to this Pearson BTEC National 2019 in Sport event, linking specifically to the Sport, Fitness and Personal Training Qualification Suite. Quick introduction, my name's Catherine Hillhouse and I am one of the sector specialist trainers with Pearson for both sport and exercise science principal subject areas. So first and foremost, let's have a quick look at today's aims and objectives. And remember, this is a pre-recorded session, so you can stop it and come back to it as and when you would like to throughout the lifetime of your access to this session. So, aims and objectives for the session. Firstly, we are going to look at the overview of the new 2019 suite of qualifications and the different vocational pathways that there are. We will then look at specifically this sport, fitness and personal training pathway and the course structure. From there we will look at tips for planning, delivery and supporting documents that are available to you to support you throughout the lifetime of your programme delivery. From there we will look at planning of the curriculum itself and when certain units should be built into the delivery of the programme. From there, we will look at internal assessment, and remember, this is one of the key special areas about this suite of qualifications, that all assessment takes place in the form of internal assessment. So we will be looking at the support for internal assessment, the process of it, as well as some teaching and learning ideas for this type of assessment. So let's start with that overview of this new 2019 suite of qualifications. So there are 4 vocational pathways that this new suite of BTEC National Level 3 Sport Sector qualifications have built into it. So we've got that Sport and Outdoor Activities pathway. Within this pathway, there are 3 sizes of qualifications available, so Foundation Diploma, Diploma and Extended Diploma. You've then got the Sports Coaching and Development pathway, which here there are 4 sizes of qualification available. So there are Extended Certificate, Foundation Diploma, Diploma and Extended Diploma available. Then we have that Sports and Excellence in Performance pathway, and this is specifically for elite performers linked to some sort of academy structure, if you like. This qualification, just to bear in mind, requires specific approval from Pearson. So if you are thinking of delivering this as part of your qualifications suites, you must gain approval prior to any delivery or assessment taking place on that Sport and Excellence and Performance pathway. The pathway we are here today to talk about primarily is that Sport and Fitness Personal Training pathway. So here, this is the pathway that has been vocationally designed for learners who wish to enter employment to either a gym instructor area or a personal trainer area. There are 4 qualification sizes available in this suite of qualifications. There are the Extended Certificate, the Foundation Diploma size, the Diploma and the Extended Diploma. We will look at this pathway more specifically in about 6 or 7 slides time. First of all, the generalised overview of these programmes as a whole. So, key features of these new BTEC Sport 2019 qualifications. As previously mentioned, all of the qualifications and all of the units within these qualifications are internally assessed. Hence, no external assessment requirement from any of the sizes of qualification. They were also developed in collaboration with specific professional bodies and key industry stakeholders so as to map necessary requirements to those industry standards that are set by these bodies, but also to allow learners to have that direct access into specific employment areas. And remember, this does relate to the qualifications that they are studying, so we will discuss this in relation to the sport, fitness and personal training vocational area slightly later on in today's session. From there as well, like with other BTEC qualifications, it does help prepare learners for work, but they also attract UCAS points. So therefore, if learners do decide to progress into HE, it does support that progression with providing them with the necessary UCAS points to be able to apply to universities and attend university level qualifications. So remember, with those UCAS points, please refer to the UCAS website for the current points tables. They are part of the Pearson reformed BTEC Level 3 Nationals qualification suites, and therefore attract the same UCAS points as all other qualifications in the sport suite of qualifications. So again, please refer to the current points tables that you can find at www.ucas.com for more information as to the different grade classifications and the points that will be allocated to those. So what makes these qualifications special? Primarily, it is the incorporation of these new larger 180 guided learning hour units that are specifically linked to the vocational pathway that learners are studying. So here we are looking at units C and D that link into those vocational areas, looking at fitness skills development, and then progressing on to that D unit, which is the personal trainer skills development. These link into the specific knowledge, understanding, and practical application that learners will have to develop to be successful in both of those vocational job roles. There are also two common units across all of the 4 different pathway areas. Here we are looking at units A and we are looking at unit B. So A is careers in sport and the active leisure industry, and this will develop learners' knowledge and understanding as to the careers that are applicable to this specific pathway. As well as that, unit B will focus upon health and well-being and sport. So we'll link into things like anatomy, physiology, things about health, well-being areas, so lifestyle factors, again preparing learners for entry into specific vocational working areas. Lastly, there is a common research project, and that research project comes into play when learners are studying towards that extended diploma size of qualification. Here they will be provided with a theme and topic that will be set by Pearson in order for them to be able to research specific areas that link specifically to those vocational pathways. Here, you as the provider and the teacher will be given those themes and topics, and you will then design assignment briefs to set your learners in order to be able to create evidence to meet the requirements of that Unit E. We will look at Unit E a little later on in the session and have a review of the unit specification and the types of topics that might well be set by Pearson. So we will come back to that. The key thing to remember about Unit E, that research project, is that it is recommended for that Year 2 delivery, as is part of a 2-year extended diploma programme, and should be delivered and assessed towards the end so that learners can utilise all of that knowledge and understanding that they've developed during the delivery and the assessment of other units on the programme. So it is key to utilise this towards the end of that delivery of the programme so that learners can be as successful as possible within that unit. Another key factor is that even though these qualifications have been approved for funding and UCAS points, they will not be included in performance measures tables in England, simply because that in order to gain performance measures points, one of the key requirements for vocational qualifications is to have an external assessment portion built into them. Because these qualifications are completely internally assessed, this makes them unviable for performance measures points. So please remember that fact moving forward, and also in your selection of suite or qualification for your learners to undertake, especially if you are reliant on these performance measures at your centre. As well as that, another key area that makes these qualifications so special is the fact that upon completion, learners can apply for professional body membership. So here, any learner who is seeking to work within a specific industry can gain membership. The 3 professional bodies that have been used to help to develop and set those industry standards depending on the qualification. Firstly, we have CIMSPA, so that Chartered Institute for the Management of Sport and Physical Activity. We then have REPS, which is that Register of Exercise Professionals. And then, not linking to this qualification, there is the Institute for Outdoor Learning, which is applicable for that sport and outdoor activity sector area. So the 2 key professional bodies that will link into today's subject that we're looking at, that's sport, fitness and personal training, will be CIMSPA as well as REPS. These 2 bodies were utilised in the creation as well as setting the standards that had to be applied by learners to achieve individual units. What should be taken into consideration here is that since the 31st of May this year, 2020, both CIMSPA and REPS have announced that they have produced an agreement to combine REPS with the CIMSPA Exercise and Fitness Directory. So therefore, what that allows for is the creation of a single directory for all exercise and fitness professionals. So if a learner is a member of REPS, they will automatically be included in that CIMSPA register and vice versa. So they have both worked together in conjunction to produce the set standards that learners must meet in order to be awarded specific levels of qualification. And we will review that again when we come back to the structure of this new sport, fitness and personal training qualification and the requirements of it. So what I would like you to do is I would like your first activity is just to think about these professional bodies. What are the roles in this environment, and why is membership into these bodies so beneficial for learners? I am going to pause the recording, so take your time, write down as many thoughts, notes as you can, and then when you rejoin, I'll briefly discuss through the key points in relation to both those set questions. Welcome back. Let's have a review of these questions. So first question set there is, what are the roles? So when we look at CIMSPA, CIMSPA is there to produce the professional standards for specific job roles within the sport and active leisure industry. And here it is basically the role of CIMSPA to professionalise those different roles as well as the sport and active leisure industry. The other one that we're really concerned with on this suite of qualifications is REPS. And remember, they have combined together since the 31st of May this year, 2020. But REPS membership provides access to work in that health and fitness industry. And it is the viewpoint of many health and fitness providers that they will only permit employees to work for them if they are a member of REPS. Remember, that also applies to that outdoor learning environment. So learners must be members of the IOL in order to gain employment within the outdoor learning environment. Membership into these professional bodies are beneficial as these work to set standards that have been provided by the relevant bodies. What that will then also provide them with is a code of conduct that they must work towards, as well as providing them with that professional recognition as to their specific vocational pathways. So extremely beneficial for learners, and encouraged for learners to join one of these professional bodies post-completion of their relevant area of study. Now, in terms of delivery of these qualifications, they can be delivered in any order that you feel free to do so in relation to those optional units and many of those mandatory units. The smaller size qualifications, and specifically here that extended certificate size, can be taught in any order, simply because all of the units on it are mandatory units. However, it is suggested that the C2 fitness skills development is one of the later units to be delivered so that learners gain the underpinning knowledge from Units A and B prior to assessment of Unit C2. When we look at the bigger qualifications and we start to bring into play both Units C and D, there is a strong relationship between Unit C and D. However, it is strongly recommended that Unit C is always taught, delivered and assessed before beginning Unit D. Simply because Unit C will provide that underpinning knowledge and understanding that learners will then have to be able to apply in specific scenarios when they study Unit D. And lastly, that Unit E, just to reinforce, is always a Year 2 unit, as it draws upon all other areas of learning that has taken place within the mandatory and the optional units on a programme, and therefore allows learners to then implement that as part of a research project. So it should always be a Year 2 unit. So let's specifically look at the sport, fitness and personal training qualification suite and the units that are available there for delivery. So we can see here that there are 4 different sizes of programme available. So just to briefly give an overview of the different sizes, when we look at that extended certificate, as said, there are 3 mandatory units. And the size of the qualification is equivalent to 1 A-level, and we have 360 guided learning hours attached to this qualification. As we progress onto that foundation diploma and that equivalent 1.5 A-level sizing qualification, we can now see that there are 6 units here that learners must undertake, but from that 6 units, 4 of those units are mandatory content. Therefore, there is only the option of a further 2 units based on centre or learner needs that can be chosen as part of the delivery of this foundation diploma qualification. Both of these sizes are normally linked to a 1-year delivery programme. And here, again, it's vital to note that these 2 qualifications are intended for post-16 learners wanting to progress directly into employment within the health and fitness sector as a gym instructor. So on successful completion, they will be able to apply to reps as a member at the level of gym instructor. It's when learners progress then onto the 2-year programme of either the diploma or the extended diploma. This will then further their ability to apply for membership as a personal trainer to reps. So here there is a development of that underpinning knowledge and understanding to advance those gym instructor skills to personal training skills. And that comes with that incorporation primarily of that Unit D2, personal training skills development. We can look at the diploma, which is 720 guided learning hours in size. It is equivalent to that 2A level size of programme. We can also see that all of the 7 units that learners need to study on this programme are mandatory. Therefore, this meets the minimum requirements of that personal training vocational sector. When we look at the extended diploma size, we now can incorporate some optional units. Here we have an additional mandatory unit added, which is that research project where learners can undertake research to a theme and a topic that links specifically into this fitness pathway. But also they can undertake an additional 4 mandatory units. Therefore, they must complete 12 units in total to be successful at this extended diploma level. Again, remember, diploma and extended diploma are designed again for those post-16 learners who wish to progress directly into employment in that health and fitness sector as a personal trainer. So, direct difference between the 1-year size programmes and the 2-year size programmes, and different advantages of completing the larger qualifications for those learners and their ability to then progress into that health and fitness vocational sector and differences in the employment thereof. So just to reinforce the 4 different sizes, we have that 1A level extended certificate size. We have the foundation diploma size, which is the equivalent to 1.5A level qualifications. National diploma is the 2A level equivalent, and then the national extended diploma is the 3A level equivalent. And again, to reinforce those different mapping to the industry standards and the apprenticeship standards. So on completion, learners who successfully achieve either the certificate, so the extended certificate, or the diploma, foundation diploma size, will have direct access to membership as a gym instructor with either REPS or SimSpa. As well as that, they will be able to progress into employment as a gym instructor within this sector. For that diploma size or that extended diploma size, it maps directly to the professional and the apprenticeship standards set out in the vocational area of a personal trainer. So again, they will be able to join REPS and SimSpa as a personal trainer and gain employment as one also. So this qualification has received full endorsement by or from REPS and SimSpa. Means that learners can enter the workforce directly upon completion as either that gym instructor or that personal trainer as stated. Here, obviously, we've got the different sizes that link into those different roles, and that should be linked back to as a unique selling point for your centre when advertising to potential learners for this programme. Another key factor is that in order for learners to enter the workforce, they must be 18 years as a minimum. This will allow them enough time to develop the knowledge and understanding, but also those personal and transferable skills that are required to be successful within these working environments. Alongside those requirements, there are also specific staffing requirements that are stated as part of this qualification suite and the delivery of certain units. So there are additional staffing requirements that have been put in place by both SimSpa and REPS in order to develop learner knowledge appropriately by industry qualified teachers or individuals. So for Unit C2, In order for the member of staff to teach this unit, they must be qualified to a level 2 gym instructor as a minimum. And for Unit D2, we are looking at a level 3 personal trainer qualification necessary of that teacher so that they have the necessary skills, knowledge, and personal traits that then can be appropriately taught to learners studying those units. As well as that, tutors must also have relevant industry experience. They also must have knowledge of and a commitment to adhering to the Exercise and Fitness Code of Ethical Practice. They must have demonstrated active involvement in a process relating to the industry relevant to continuing professional development during the last 2-year period, and they should be knowledgeable of the active leisure, learning and wellbeing framework of qualifications. As well as that, teachers or tutors also need to be holding or working towards a teaching qualification. So in terms of the teaching qualifications, there are a variety of those that are acceptable, ranging from certificate in education, postgraduate certificate in education, the PETALS qualification, KETALS qualification, the DETALS qualification, and also, as well as that, they need to be holding or working towards an assessing qualification so that they can assess the unit appropriately. Those assessor qualifications that are applicable, for example, an A1 qualification or possibly a D32, D33 qualification, as well as that, could be the level 3 certificate in assessing vocational achievement at QCF level. All of these would be applicable forms of qualification that those assessors need to be holding or working towards. The last staffing requirement relates to the IV process, and the individual who will be internally verifying the assessment decisions also needs to have a relevant internal verification qualification or be working towards that standard. So again, any of the following: the level 4 in the internal quality assurance of assessment processes and practices, or it could be the level 4 certificate in leading the internal quality assurance of assessment processes and practices, or it could be the V1 qualification or the D34. These all have the recommended level of knowledge, understanding, and the ability to apply the internal verification process appropriately to the qualifications. Therefore, it must be adhered to. If you have any queries on this, then please do not hesitate to contact Pearson, who will be more than happy to provide you with further guidance as to the types of teaching qualification, assessor qualification, or IV qualification that will be allowed within this staffing requirements element. Okay, so let's move along then to the types of assessment. Remember that we will only be looking at an overview of each of the assessment methods in this session, and if you require any further information about any differences between units, content, assessment processes, then there will be other online events made available in the near future to support you with the delivery and assessment of specific areas. So please have a look out on the Pearson website for other online events that will become available. Key type of assessment is those internal assessments. So 2 different types really. First one is the completely centre device internal assessment, or the use of those authorised assignment briefs. This is applicable for the majority of those mandatory and those optional units. So therefore, you as the centre and the teacher will set those assignments. You will also then mark those assignments and that evidence produced by the learner. Pearson involvement will come in primarily with that standards verification of the assessments, as well as your programme towards the end of the academic year. Remember that standards verification process is an annual process, and therefore Pearson will wish to look at some amount of assessment that's taken place on your programme on an annual basis. The second type of internal assessment is that Pearson set assignment. So they don't physically set that assignment, but what they do is they set a theme and a topic. And from that, you choose which one would suit your learner's needs best. From there, you would then generate an assignment brief for that theme and topic. You would then assess it in the same manner as the other type of internal assessment that we've just spoken about. And again, this would then be subject to that verification by Pearson. So all of the assessment is internally assessed. It just depends on where the theme or the topic has been set from. That Pearson set assignment, internal assessment, relates only to Unit E, that research project unit. And we will review that a little bit later on in the session. But firstly, just to recap the process of this internal assessment. So remember that there are authorised assignment briefs available on the Pearson website for you to utilise if you wish to do so. Assignment tasks should cover all assessment criteria within a learning aim. Therefore, if there are 5 assignment criteria relating to learning aim A, for example, whether it be 2 pass criteria, 2 merit criteria, and a distinction criteria, all of those assessment criteria must be assessed as a complete entity, and those assessment criteria within that learning aim cannot be split. The authorised assignment briefs will support you to develop your assignment briefs appropriately, as they have been created with this ruling in mind. As well as that, we also have the learner feedback rules, which apply consistently throughout any form of internal assessment. And what this means is that during the formative stage and the preparation phase, you can provide your learner with as much feedback as you like, using your own professional judgment in relation to your learner's needs. So that could be providing them with mock assignments or mock tasks, and providing them with guidance as to how they can improve the evidence that they are producing. Once they start the summative assessment process, you can then provide them with no further specific guidance as such. You can, however, provide encouragement and general support as to key elements of that assessment, things such as clarification of deadlines and also the clarification of the expectations of that assignment brief. You must, however, not comment on specific achievement or specific criteria, since learners are expected to work independently during this summative assessment process. From here, it is only once learners have submitted their evidence and following that assessment, you can then provide them with extra feedback. Again, it cannot be specific feedback, but you can comment on what has been achieved and why they have achieved it, as well as any general feedback on how well that learner has performed during that assessment. You cannot then comment on what areas have not been achieved and why they haven't been achieved. And you also can't provide feedback that provides learners with information on how to improve the grade that they have already achieved. Learners are allowed one resubmission, and this can be related to a resubmission allowing them to achieve pass criteria, but as well as to try and upgrade evidence that they've already submitted, as long as they are not provided with specific feedback relating to that initial assessment. They are allowed for 15 working days for resubmissions to take place. And remember, those resubmissions must be authorised by the lead internal verifier for the programme. And they will only authorise resubmissions for an assignment if they identify 3 key things. So the first thing is that the learner has met all of the initial deadlines or agreed extensions that you have provided them with. The second point they will think about is whether that learner will be able to provide improved evidence without further specific guidance. And lastly, you have confirmed that the evidence provided is originally, authentically, the learner's own work. From here, that lead internal verifier may well authorise a resubmission opportunity. And remember that learners can have resubmission opportunities for every assignment set on the programme. A retake works slightly differently. So that retake is there as a fallback mechanism to support learners to achieve pass criteria for a unit. How it works, what you need to do as a teacher is to set a new task or a new assignment that is targeted only at the pass criteria that has not yet been achieved in the original assignment, whether it be first submission or resubmission attempts. From here, it's only those pass criteria that they haven't achieved. So it doesn't have to have all of the pass for the unit or for the assignment incorporated. It's just the ones that they have not originally met. Remember, it must be a new set task or assignment only targeting those pass criteria. At this point, you as the assessor cannot award a merit or a distinction grade for a retake assignment. This can only be achieved via that original assignment or that resubmission assignment. As well as that, what we need to remember is for these retakes, your standards verifier will want to see evidence of these. And that means that they will need to see evidence of retakes within the sampling materials that they will review on an annual basis. Once learners have had their initial submission, the resubmission, and then if applicable, that retake opportunity, no further submissions or retakes are allowed after this. So if learners have not achieved the relevant pass criteria for the unit, they will not achieve the unit. So what I would like to do next is for you to just undertake a little activity. It does relate to Unit C2 and you can find that in your download pod. What I would like you to think about are the 4 questions listed on the slide. What resources will you need to access in order to deliver this unit? Question 2, what requirements are in place for practical assessments for this unit? What evidence do you think you will need to provide for practical assessment? And lastly, discuss ways you could support appropriate practical assessment at your centre to meet the unit requirements. So again, I'm going to pause the recording, take your time, work through the questions, make some notes and reference points for future as to this Unit C2 and how to best deliver it. So linking into these 4 questions and the current environment that we're living in at the moment, and linking to COVID situations. Key considerations here are safety measures for all of these different areas. there is a specific support document that has been generated for the sports principal subject area that will help to support you with recommended adjustments in relation to these practically based units. You can find that on the Sport 2019 fitness specific website. And again, it will provide you with guidance as to how to amend or how to adjust practical application and involvement, as well as that assessment. So there's lots of things that need to be taken into consideration, such as resistance machines usage, equipment usage. This document will help you to link into the possible adjustments that you could make as a centre in delivery of this type of unit. As well as that, the resources. When we think about resources, some centres might not have all of the applicable practical resources that are needed for this type of unit. You may well not have fixed resistance machines. Therefore, it could be linking into centres which are nearby to utilise their resources appropriately. Remember, SIMSPA and REPS also have COVID guidelines in place, so please refer back to these and the linking with local partners element. So, practical assessments, requirements. Learners obviously have to use clients for practical assessments, and in normal circumstances, these individuals would not be known to the learner. However, reasonable adjustments during COVID states that learners can use individuals from their bubble. So whether that's their classroom bubble that they are learning in, or whether that is their family bubble that they're living with, this is an applicable adjustment that needs to be made in the current circumstances. But again, refer back to those guidelines that have been produced both by Pearson and SIMSPA and REPS to support you with these assessment requirements. The evidence, as mentioned, they must be able to provide relevant evidence that will support their achievement of the specific criteria for the practical areas. So here, video footage needs to be provided so that that evidence can be appropriately verified. If the video evidence covers all of the necessary assessment requirements, no further supporting evidence will be needed. However, if learners have fully not discussed, described, explained or analysed elements, this will then need to be further supported with some sort of written evidence in order to support the achievement of certain criteria. So please bear that in mind. It might also involve some sort of observation record or witness testimony by the assessor to support this as well. But remember, those must be fully detailed with specifics of what the learner did in order to achieve relating criteria. Remember, to support it, it may well have to have links to other health and fitness centres to carry out those practical aspects. Again, this will link to specifically your centre and the equipment that you have available for this practical assessment element. Next activity I would like you to do is to have a look at the authorised assignment brief that has been generated for this unit C2. You've got another 2 questions here that I want you to think about. So question 1, what alternatives to a written report could be used in task 1? And again, relating to task 1, and the assignment brief, what other aspects of that authorised assignment brief can be amended to meet your local needs as a centre, but also your learners? So again, I'm going to pause the recording, let you work through these couple of questions, and when we come back, I'll give you some ideas. Welcome back. Hopefully you've had enough time just to review those 2 questions. But what alternatives could be used to a written report? So remember, this is all dependent on your learners and their needs. Here, we could use preparation of a presentation material. They wouldn't have to present it unless that was stipulated in the in the assignment brief that you've written, or the task that you've written, but they would have to produce it. So presentation is sometimes easily accessible for learners. It could be a blog, it could be a vlog, it could be a poster for certain elements. Again, link it specifically to the requirements of the assessment criteria and ask learners to produce evidence that they will find the easiest to support that achievement, relating to their own learner needs. Other aspects of the assignment briefs that can be amended to meet your local needs are things like the key elements of these assignment briefs, things like assessor name, hand out and hand in dates. These can all be changed. As well as that, we want to produce tasks and scenarios that meet local needs. So therefore, link it into local health and fitness areas or companies' availabilities, so that learners can then contextualise the assessment and are able to link to it easier with that locality in mind. So the top tips for authorised assignment briefs, or creating your own briefs and how we might change them. Remember, vocational scenarios are key. Could be simple, or it could be full detailed sets of scenarios provided for learners. But remember, it must motivate the learner to apply the learning through this assignment that's been set. So you can contextualise that scenario to your own setting. If you choose to create your own assignment briefs, there must be clear instructions provided to that learner as to specifically what they are required to do as part of that assessment. And likewise, as mentioned on the previous slide, alter the suggested assessment methods if relevant, so that the learners have the ability to successfully achieve the requirements of the particular assessment points. Again, command verbs are really key. Command verbs will tell the learners exactly what is expected of them, and it gives them a purpose to the evidence that they are producing. So highlight the command verbs, be clear in the guidance, whether it be to referencing or specific format that you require from the evidence that they produce. And lastly, provide an explanation of how that assignment relates to the units that are being assessed. So think about the wording of your task scenarios and also the evidence that they need to produce to meet those assessment criteria, but linking it back to the expectations of those units. Key thing, always ensure all assignments are internally verified and cleared by your internal verifier prior to release to learners, to ensure that that internal quality assurance process is adequate for the programme. Again, it will be a requirement of the standards verifier to review your assignment briefs as part of that quality assurance process. So these must be made available, as well as any internal verification documentation relating to them. So back to this Unit E and that Pearson set assignment, as it's been called. Here, this will be assessed through a centre set assignment, as I mentioned previously, but the theme and the topic will be provided by Pearson. That theme and topic will enable learners to design and implement a research project appropriately to specific area or specific topic within the fitness pathway linking directly to this qualification. So they'll be able to research, interpret, analyse a range of information which is focused particularly on that specific area of interest. As well as that, in order to support the development for this unit, there will be a Pearson Set Assignment Guide and a theme release document, which will be there to support not only you as teachers, but also learners to develop evidence which will meet all of the relating criteria. As well as that, it will provide guidance on the delivery of that Pearson Set unit for you as teachers. So we link here into the task for Unit E. The activity that I'd like you to think about has 2 questions attached to it, and you need to review the specification for Unit E, which you can find in your download pod. So 2 questions. What resources do you think you'll need access to in order to deliver this unit effectively? As well as that, what sort of themes can you think of that would work for your learners in your centre? Again, I'm going to just pause this recording for a couple of minutes so that you can make some notes, and then when we come back, I'll discuss through a couple of topic areas that might link into these questions. So specifically for Unit E, and looking at question 1, what resources will you need access to? Again, it will link into the topics that have been set and the themes that Pearson have linked into, but primarily learners are going to have access to computers as well as internet access so that they can primarily research different topic areas. If we look at the topics that were set for summer 2020 for the sport, fitness and personal training subject area, here we were looking at first theme being, or first topic being, the levels of physical activity in children and young people. And the second topic was that learners had to explore client attitudes and how this could support their progression. And that would link in a variety of ways, whether that was a progression in terms of fitness goals, fitness achievements, or motivational areas to allow learners to continue with their progression routes. So again, linking back to the specification as an entirety, these topics and themes can come from any aspect of delivery that has taken place in the relevant units that are available on the programme. Therefore, it is vital that this Unit E, delivery and assessment, takes place towards the end of that 2-year programme, so as to allow learners to develop a full knowledge and understanding of all different areas that they may be asked about as part of this set assignment. So, top tips for delivery. Again, it's key to use a variety of assessment methods in order to successfully not only assess, but to help with that successful delivery of that vocational programme, so that learners can be assessed in a variety of methods that may well be applicable to their workplace life in future. Also, think about implementing a robust induction and student handbook at the start of that programme. And what that will allow is, that will allow learners to understand from the beginning exactly what will be incorporated into the programme, as well as the assessments that will be undertaken throughout it by them. Consider the importance of those transferable skills. So think about communication, so verbal, written, practical skills that may well be utilised throughout their working life as a gym instructor or a personal trainer, and the development of these transferable skills so as to be successful upon completion. As well as that, it's key to help develop a network of industry experts to help to support not only your delivery, but also possibly your assessment of your programme. But also to incorporate this into things such as visits, work experience elements, so that learners can develop their skills, knowledge and understanding within a specific environment. Also, consider what the value-added aspects of your programme are and what your unique selling points are in relation to your school and college that you can provide or offer to learners. And again, these unique selling points can be used as marketing tools for your programme moving forwards. I have mentioned those command words, and here it's really key to link those command words into achievement. And remember, it also identifies the relevance of that Bloom's taxonomy in developing criteria and assessment points within a unit. Remember, those tasks are designed to work through the levels of thinking skills in order to enable learners to meet appropriate assessment levels, and that appropriate levels of criteria are being awarded to learners. Bloom's taxonomy shows the correlation between higher order thinking skills to the higher level grades that are applicable for units, so merits and distinction tasks. It's not only teachers that should be familiar with these command words, but also learners should be developed to have a greater knowledge and understanding of them. What that will do is it will then support learners to produce evidence that will meet those higher level grades. So what I want you to do for the next 5 minutes, there's a little command verb activity here. Again, I'm going to pause the recording, but I would like you to match the command verb to the definition. So when we come back, I will give you the answers, but please try and do this before you come back into the session. So hopefully you've had time to interact with this activity, but let me just run through the answers, which I'm sure you're all waiting for in anticipation. So number 1, assess, links in with definition C. Number 2, that discuss, links in with definition D. Number 3, then links to definition E. Number 4 links to definition B. And lastly, number 5, then the only one that's left, links to definition A. Again, these are really key for learner achievement. If learners understand the expectations of these assessment criteria, then they will be more successful at achieving those higher grades for their evidence produced. So, top tips for assessment of internal units. Remember, the tutor must not provide specific assessment feedback on evidence produced or confirm any achievement of specific criteria before it is submitted for assessment by that learner. They must then not provide feedback or guidance on how to improve the evidence to achieve higher grades. And that final assessment decision will be based on the assessment criteria achieved by those learners. So remember that for learners to achieve a pass for an assignment or a unit, learners must achieve all of the relating pass criteria. For a merit, they must have achieved all of the pass criteria as well as all of the merit criteria over and above that. And then for that distinction, they must have achieved all pass, all merit, and then distinction criteria. Remember, this is a definitive assessment and method of recording of that learner's achievement across an entirety of a unit. From here, a key thing that should be utilised are those mock assignment briefs. That will then prepare learners as to the extent of evidence that is required by them to achieve specific criteria, but will also encourage excellence throughout those units and will allow learners to achieve higher grades than possibly anticipated by fully preparing them for assessment points. Now, support for that internal assessment, we have looked at authorised assignment briefs, and there are those briefs available for every learning aim and every unit. Again, utilise these as is or change them to suit your local needs and your learner needs, but use them as a template to help you to develop your own assessment materials. There are sample mark learner work elements available on the website, which will help you to understand the necessary requirements for specific assessment points. And from there are also delivery guides and delivery plans available. All of these are free of charge and available on the Pearson website. So please review these at your leisure and to support you with your preparation, delivery and assessment of the programmes. Remember, you've also got your lead standards verifier as well as your standards verifier, who are your points of contact with Pearson throughout the academic year, so as to ask any questions, but also to get any support for any aspects of internal assessment that you might need support or guidance with. Lastly, you do have your centre standardisation materials available to you, and these were previously known as your OSCA materials that are allocated at the start of the academic year so that assessment teams can utilise these to standardise the assessment process within centres. What it also provides you with is guidance on the national standards that must be achieved through that assessment process in order to maintain national levels of assessment on these BTEC programmes. You can utilise these standardisation materials just for that purpose, but you could use these as exemplar materials moving forward to demonstrate to learners the type of evidence that needs to be produced to meet specific standards of certain units. So what I would like you to do now is, now thinking about planning your programme, so here I want you to think about the considerations that you need to make when planning for that programme. Again, I'm going to just pause the recording and I'd like you to just make some notes around those 4 specific areas that are listed on screen. So remember, these 4 questions are specifically geared towards you as a centre. Therefore, just remember the key things that are applicable here. There are delivery plans available on the website, and these are free to you to use as is or change to suit your own needs. You need to consider the size of qualification that you are delivering, and therefore once you establish that, you will be able to think about the unit delivery and where exactly those units will be placed in order. Bearing in mind, the C unit should be delivered before the D unit to develop knowledge and understanding, and also that application of that E unit being applied towards the end of the qualification in order to support learners fully through that assessment of that unit. Do you need any specialist equipment? So think about the fitness equipment that you currently have and whether you as a centre need to purchase specialist equipment, or where might you actually link into local fitness facilities to have access to that specialist equipment. As well as that, is it a 1 or a 2 year process, and where exactly would these units link in best throughout that 2 year period or 1 year period? Again, some more questions just to think about. I will pause the recording for another 5 or so minutes, and then once you come back, you should have made a list of areas of good practice or areas of support that you might need to consider for delivery of this qualification. Okay, so now that you've had a chance to write down some notes for that area, let's just link into lastly this quality assurance element. I have spoken about this as we've moved through this pre-recorded session, but just to reinforce the fact that that SV process will be an annual process. Currently for academic year 2021, because of the COVID environment that we are currently subjected to, it will be a remote process. The process will not change, however, so your standards verifier will still require to see your assessment plan for the programme, your assignment briefs, the internal verification records for those briefs, as well as assessment work from your learners and any evidence of internal verification for those learners' work. This will be done remotely, so this will either be via email submission or via some sort of cloud submission. It will still take place to ensure that quality assurance is being adhered to throughout the programme that you're delivering. Moving forwards, the process may well change depending on COVID and how the world responds to COVID as such. So therefore, it is really important that you continue to keep updated by using the centre guides to areas such as assessment, internal verification, and quality assurance that can be downloaded from the Pearson website to support you with this quality assurance process. So lastly, let's just have a link into the support that's available for you as a centre, but also for learners. And the first area, I mentioned lots of free support. The first area is a paid for resource that might be useful to you as a teacher, but also as a centre. So Sport Plus is an app-based, paid-for digital learner resource. And in today's current environment, with lots of remote teaching taking place, it could be utilised to fully support learners at home through the learning process. Here, students and teachers can access it both inside and outside of the classroom, and it's designed, as I said, to support and develop learners on specific areas of these new suite of BTEC national qualifications. When we look at the key elements of this Sport Plus package, it is an interactive resource that will be available for specific units on these 2019 pathways. So the units that are there and available are Unit A, the Careers in Sports unit, B, Health, Wellbeing and Sports, Unit C1, Developing Coaching Skills, Unit C2, Fitness Skills Development, Unit D1, Application of Coaching Skills, and Unit D2, Personal Trainer Skills Development. As well as that, there are resources available for Unit E, that research project. Then some of those other mandatory optional units, Unit 1, Sports Development, Unit 2, Self-Employment, and Unit 4, Nutrition. Now, these are available to buy as complete learning packs of all resources, or in grouped resources, as well as the ability to purchase individual units, again dependent on your needs as a centre. Within these resources, there are formative assessments, self-marking quizzes that will provide you and your learners with instant feedback, but also help to track progress throughout units, as well as achievement of specific areas in this formative setting. At the end of each module, it enables learners to know how to approach those BTEC command words or verbs that relate specifically to those assessment criteria for those assignments and unit points, and therefore they should be able to apply the knowledge within set contexts that are set within those assignments. Can be accessed through a variety of different platforms, therefore is fully accessible in this digital age. Back to those free resources, which can be found on the Fitness and Personal Training 2019 page within the Pearson Sport area of the Pearson website. We've looked at those authorised briefs, we've had a look at the specifications. As well as that, as mentioned, there are things like delivery guides, there are mapping documents, so mapped straight to industry standards, so you can see exactly where learners will learn and be able to apply those standards appropriately, as well as course planners. So again, utilise all of these. They are free and available on the website for you to use as how you choose to use them. There's also something called My BTEC, which again is another free resource that you can access as a centre running BTEC programmes, and it allows you to have one area for all of your BTEC programme needs to be managed, including delivery and assessment needs. Here it does provide a support for the entire teaching and assessment team to utilise all of recording and tracking in one place. As well as that, it provides an area for all of that assessment material to be gathered and held in a localised area. That means that everyone involved in the programme delivery can have access to it at any time. As well as that, it can help with creating assignments based on your needs, and also provides a grade tracking service for learners so that you can track progress and also link into future assessment requirements to meet specific grade needs towards the end of a programme. It is free, as I mentioned, and you can access it at the following website that's listed there. So mybtec.pearson.com, or you can access it from the Pearson Qualifications website. Again, remember, you've got that planning support. Review it on the website, and that will provide you with a 2-year course planner, as well as schemes of work for individual units to help you to deliver those units effectively. There is a question and answer pod available to you at the moment, but what I would suggest is that because it is a pre-recorded session, there will be no answers provided. So make a note of those answers and make a note of those questions and send them to your subject advisor for PE and sport, who is Penny Lewis. You can send those questions to Penny at that link on screen now, and Penny will respond with answers within normally a 48-hour period. So moving forwards after completion today is to look to Penny for any support, any guidance that you need in relation to delivery, assessment and support of your learners on this particular programme. You will be sent a link for a feedback form to be completed. If you could complete that for me, that would be fabulous. And apart from that, all that's left for me to say is thanks for listening to this pre-recorded session. Hopefully you've gained all of the necessary help and support that you were looking for from the session, but bearing in mind that there will be more specific training provided in relation to specific units, delivery, content, and enhancing that delivery on specific programmes. So please keep an eye out for that moving forwards. Thanks for attending, stay safe, and bye.